Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our first training course related to ISO 17025, the version 2017. Today we will start with our first topic and clause 6.2 related to personnel. First of all, let's introduce myself. I'm Dr. Mohamed Saad. I'm working as Senior Accreditation Expert with the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, and also I'm working as Lead Assessor for Accreditation with several accreditation bodies. One of them is the Emirates International Accreditation Center. I'm also a member of several ILAC committee groups, like Accreditation Issues Committee and the work group number 4 related to medical labs accreditation. It will be my pleasure to be with you for today training the requirements of personnel according to the new version of the standard ISO 17025. So let's start first of all by looking into what is the requirements for the resources. The clause 6 of the standard, it's about resources, and it is giving several points which is required to be available in the lab. First, it is the personnel, which we are talking about today. Second is facilities, and then equipment, systems, and support services. So these are the resources which it's required to be available in any lab implementing 17025. We will talking about personnel today, and for personnel there's a magic word which we need to take care about. This word, it is the competency. When we are talking about personnel 17025, it's different than any other standard. That the word competency, it is very important to understand that competency is very important. What is the meaning of competency? Competency, it is how you will be able to demonstrate the knowledge and the skill and to apply into your lab. It is not enough to have knowledge, it's not enough to have skills, but it's important to have the competency, which is combination of the knowledge and the skills, and to apply or implement these knowledge and skills into your lab system. This is the competency, and every time in this standard you will find the word competency, competent person. So these are the meaning of the word competency. Now, let's go to the personnel. And when we talk about personnel, let's take into consideration that it is not only the full staff members of the lab. We are talking here about any staff member, however internal or external. Could be internal staff working as full-time, could be part-time staff, could be contracted consultants, or however. So any lab affecting the activities of the lab, any person affecting the activities of the lab is considered as one of the personnel and considered to be implementing this part of the standard. So first part of this standard 621, that all personnel shall be impartial and competent and work in accordance with the lab management system. So first is the person shall be impartial. This was described before in the clause related to the impartiality. And the second is the person shall be competent. We talked about competency, meaning, and we will talk about that more in 622 now, which is talking about how to document the competency. And the third is that the personnel of the lab shall work accordance to the lab management system. So if we have a management system, the personnel shall be implementing this. That means they should be aware about the contents of this management system. That means if I am assessor assessing your lab, I look for how you are ensuring that your lab personnel are aware and working according to the lab management system, which means you need to give all of lab personnel awareness about your management system. It is the responsibility usually of the technical or quality manager, however. So this is the first part of this clause: to be impartial, to be competent, to work accordance with the lab management system. Next, now let's see how we will document the competency of each of the lab personnel. Here is 622, which is talking about documenting the competency requirements. We need to find files and records for each of the following. Qualification. What are the qualifications for everyone in your lab? So when you are talking now, please take into consideration that you will have a file for every one of lab personnel, however, external or internal staff. And these files and records shall include the following. Let's go quickly and go after that in details. Qualification, training, technical knowledge, skills, experience, and education. Each one of them, you need to have records and documents giving the evidence that the person is qualified and have the training and technical knowledge and skills, experience, education for this particular job. So first, you need to ask yourself, what is the authorization for this person? Let's take, for example, if you are authorizing a technician to implement one of the test methods. So is this person, is this technician qualified, competent, trained, have the technical knowledge, have the skills, experience, education related to this job? This is the question you need to ask and answer by yourself. Because if I am the assessor of the accreditation body, I ask you how you will ensure that person is competent to do the testing of, for example, if you are construction testing labs and you are implementing one of the standards related to compressive strength of concrete, how you are ensure this technician is competent to do the compressive strength of concrete. Then I'll find the answer in a file of this person, including his qualification, training related to this test method, compressive strength of concrete. Technical knowledge, how he got technical knowledge related to that field. What is the skills he got? What is the experience he has in this area? Is the education related to that? So for each job, however, it's technical job like technician, however, it is, for example, purchasing responsible man. He's the one responsible for purchasing. Also, you need to ensure his competency by having all of this qualification, training, technical knowledge, skills, experience, and education. So this is how we will prove and giving the evidence for the competency of each one of the employees of the lab. And now let's go to the next subclause 623, that the personnel, the lab shall have personnel with competency to perform lab activities and evaluate deviations. So now you need to have impartial competent, and how we got the competency with this way, and we need to be sure that everyone is performing lab activities and evaluate deviations. These people, this staff, are competent to do this. And so it is giving special subclause, special one, about lab activities and evaluating deviations. Anyone do this shall be competent for this job. Now, it's not enough to have the competency of the person to give him authorization for any uh, of the test methods, for example, but also you need to communicate to the person his duties, responsibilities, and authorities. This is 624, communication to the personnel. So it is important to have evidence that I'm working as lead assessor, so I'm going to one of the staff, I'm asking him, what is your job description? What is your position? What is your job description? What is your responsibilities? You need to be aware about that. You need to communicate that to him. Did you provide, as quality manager, did you provide the staff with the job description card, or however named, authorities, responsibilities, so they are aware? In some cases, actually, I have maybe thousands of assessments experience with accreditation, and I'm meeting some of the staff. I'm asking the technician, what is your responsibilities in the lab? And he's telling me, I'm assistant technician. Okay, good. What are you doing? So he starts explaining that I am doing this and this and this, which is the job description of the technician, not the assistant technician. So be careful as a lab manager or quality manager that everyone in the lab know exactly what is his job description, what is his duties, the responsibilities, authorities. And if we are talking about authorities, take care of the following. Each of the test methods of the lab, there need to be very clear authorization for the machine, equipment, for the test method, that everyone of the lab staff exactly they know, and they are authorized to do specific tasks or specific test methods. That means if you are implementing in your lab, for example, 6 test methods, so for each test method, you will identify who's exactly the authorized technician or authorized staff to implement this test method, to perform this test method. You cannot say everyone can do everything unless you have evidence that everyone have the same duties, same responsibilities, same qualifications, or at least the minimum qualifications to do that. So we need to be careful about the authorities required for each of the lab personnel in this regard. Now, we need to have a procedure and records for the following. First, determination of the competence, selection of the personnel, training, supervision, authorization, and monitoring. So first of all, determining the competence. You need to define what are the minimum competence required for each job or each position in your lab. If you have, for example, you go to your organization structure, you look into the organization structure, what is exactly the jobs, the titles there. We have quality manager, quality officer, technical manager, deputy of the technical manager, technician, assistant technician, or however the positions you have. You need for each of this to define what are the minimum requirements for competence. Competence means knowledge, skills, education. Let's go to the previous slide and you will find exactly what are the requirements for competence. So for each position, each job in your lab, you need to define and to determine what are the competence requirements. Second, you will have in your procedure how you will select the person, on which basis, what are your procedure for selection of personnel. After selection, what you will do with them, contracting, and after that, number C, training of personnel. Training means you will have a system for training. And training here, we have several types of training. First of all, induction training for the new personnel. When you got new staff in your lab, you need to define exactly what topics you will provide for this person. What exactly the training requirements for the person newly joined the lab, and especially if he has no experience. Take care that if I am assessor and I'm going to your lab, I'm looking for the new staff to ensure that you are implementing your procedure well with them, to ensure that you already have the induction training to inform them about your quality system, about their job description, about the first time training on job training for example, if the technician or assistant technician, how you will give him the first training, induction training about that. So this is the first type of training, induction training. Also, we have the on-job training. We need to have all the time. We authorized the persons for specific test methods. So we need to provide them with the related training. And if you have, for example, one technician, he's authorized to do 3 test methods, but he's not authorized to do another test method. So do you have a plan for training of the person to be upgraded or to be able to do the other test method? Who will provide the training? He shall be also authorized for training other person and shall be competent to do the training of the person. So training of personnel, it is including induction training, on-job training, and also we have the quality system training, because according to the clauses related to the management system, you need to have all of your staff aware about the quality system requires, management system requires, quality policy. You know, when assessor coming to your lab, he will meet any of the staff and asking them, what is your job? What is the quality policy of the lab? The staff need to be aware about the quality policy. How this will come? You need to have training of personnel. Also, for example, internal audit training, we consider as part of the quality system training. So you need to have all your internal auditor need to have training as internal auditor about that. So now this is training of personnel. After that, supervision of personnel. You need to make supervisors for all of your lab major activities. Testing activity. Who's supervising the testing activity? You need to define, and you need to be sure that each major activity of the lab, however, testing, calibration, it is done under the supervision of authorized supervisor. And then number E, authorization of personnel. Everyone, as I informed you before, everyone in the lab need to be authorized to do his job in a competent way. We need to, when we define the competency requirements, selected the right person, do the training for him, supervising him, then now he is authorized to do the job. Authorization is coming after ensuring that he is qualified and competent enough to do that. And last point in our procedures and records, number F, it's talking about monitoring the competency. Are you sure that this person is implementing his activities, his job description in a competent way? Yes. How you will ensure that? By monitoring his competency. So we need to have a plan, or however, to ensure to have monitoring of the competency. Which method you can use in your lab for monitoring the competency of personnel? We have several ways. First of all, during internal audit, you can have part related to witness the competency of the lab personnel. We are talking now about witnessing of the competency, witnessing of the test method. So you will ensure that this person supervised during the internal audit or monitored or audited by someone who has the knowledge in this test method and evaluating. And so we are ensuring that this person is competent. So first way of the monitoring you can do by internal audit. Second, you can do the monitoring by having proficiency testing. And it is a very important tool for ensuring the competency of the personnel. Using the interlab comparison, proficiency testing, quality controls, however, internal or external, this is important way, but you need to plan for that. You need to say that this proficiency testing this month will be given to the technician X. Next month, technician Y, and after that. So by this way, I'll be sure that if the results of X stuff is good, it is evidence that when I monitored him, he's competent to do the job. So you can have your plan for proficiency testing, not only to ensure your lab test results, but also to give evidence that your lab staff doing their job with a competent way. So when you plan for process testing, please don't consider the PT, it is just one of the requirements of the standard and you are doing this as a routine way. No, do as much as possible of test methods to ensure your lab staff are competent to do their job. So also, monitoring the competence of personnel can be done by the proficiency testing or however the way of quality assurance in the lab. We can use this and take this also into consideration. This 6 points, you need to have a procedure for personnel and you need to have this 6 points clearly identified in your procedure. So please, if you are missing any one of these points in your procedure for staff or personnel or training or however name the procedure, please be sure that you will add this point. And also the records for each one of them, you need to have a record. You need to have monitoring system for the competence of personnel and records for the monitoring. This stuff, I monitored him in that month and I found the result of monitoring satisfactory. Okay, but if it is not satisfactory results, then you need to take corrective action to give him more training or however the way you are using to correct and to ensure that your staff is still competent all the time. So this is important points need to be taken into consideration in the procedures and records of personnel. And now let's move to the last part of the clause 6.2. Last part, it's talking about special authorization. This three parts, you need to make it very, very clear in your records or documents. Who is authorized to do the following? Number one, development, modification, verification, and validation of the methods. However, it is testing or calculation. So be sure that in your system, you have authorized person to do this. The validation of the test method, or if you are not validating, the verification of the test method. If you are not doing both, the development of the method. So be sure that in the test methods part, you have authorized person to develop, modify, verify, or validate these methods. Number one. Number two, the reporting, review, and authorization of the results. So we have three categories. First one, who is the authorized staff to report the results? Number two, who is the authorized staff to review the result? Take care. We are talking about each test method in your lab. Each test method, or maybe each group of test methods, maybe a department in your lab. But we need to, when I ask you, who is authorized to report the compressive strength of cubes, of concrete cubes, you will tell me the technician X is the authorized to report. And who's authorized to review? Okay, so, and the final authorization of the results, we need to make sure that everyone for the report, for the review, for the approval of the result, it's identified clearly in your lab. Finally, and last point for today's part, we are talking about analysis of the results, including statements of conformity or opinion and interpretations. We are talking about analysis of results. It's not meaning that doing the test, meaning understanding the results and giving the results and analyzing the results, so you can say this is accepted or no within the criteria, within the range. So, you know, some labs, they are authorized to perform interpretations or giving opinions or giving conformity to specific standards. Some labs have the authority to say, yes, this product is conforming to this specifications or not. In this case, you need to identify clearly who is the authorized staff to do this job. So this is the meaning of that. And now, this was the last point, 626 in the standard 17025, the version 2017. I hope you have good understanding for this standard now, and we promise you to have the next part for the training. Next time we will inform you about exactly the time, and next time it will be about equipment. So we hope to meet you again. If you have any questions related to this, please, you can send through the email which sent to you of Inspeed Global, and it's our pleasure to be with you all the time. Have a nice day and goodbye.